All right, everybody, welcome to another very special episode of Lupin, which every episode is a special episode. I don't know if caught last night, but like I said, I usually do my shows, in the daytime just because I like getting things done during the day. And but every now and then somebody requests, to join on. I like a lot of people leave it, not sure what's up with that, but I don't know why. My algorithm gets like whatever it is, and somebody wanted to have a conversation with me, and sister, and check out the channel, seems like Santa, I'll bring her up stage in a minute, and everything I talk a little bit, I can talk a little bit of my screen, I want to know a little more about my point of view, or how I take my life into this and incorporate that into my life. So with that being said, we got Mr. or Sir Owen in the building.
Hello. How are you this evening? How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm going to put myself over here for now, though, because I think I'm going to be on the red side. Well, you could be the red coat, but in America, it's a little bit different.
It's funny, right? In most of the world, red is the left, isn't it, or the more left-wing party, and blue's the right. But America does things differently. It's one of life's curiosities. But no, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I'm Owen McDonald. I have a channel with similar sort of conversations and streams on and such, fairly low key, not anything super serious. But yeah, it's thank you for inviting me on the show, on the channel. So it'd be interesting to hear what we have to say to each other. But no, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, we're always super serial over here. Very serious, but it's just a joke. No worries. I'm trying to find your channel so I can go ahead and drop it. Kind of post it up in there. There you go. I got you right here. Actually, it's in the title. So if you want to find him, you can find him there. Here's his @ tag. So if you want to check him out, you can go ahead. But you told us a little bit about yourself, about your channel and everything. Kind of, I guess, what do you do? Do you do like political, religious discussions, world view, like world, topographic kind of stuff, or what is your kind of wheelhouse here?
I mean, anything really. Anything. I think everything has a political element to it. So I suppose mainly political, but there's no. I'm not too fussed really about a specific set of things. It's about ideas and about people in society, the sociology of the world, so to speak.
Sure thing. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I always find it a little bit. Sometimes I find it somewhat not necessarily difficult, but it just seems like whenever I'm speaking with somebody in the UK, they're presented with their media and their vision of the U.S. and they think this is how it is. And basically, usually they'll see like Texas takes up 1/4 of the map, and that includes like 5 other states. Then you got like New York, big money. Then you got Florida, the right side of the armpit of the United States, and then you got like California taking. And they kind of generalized everything there. It's big, but it's almost like 2 worlds. And it's interesting because politically it's tough. It's difficult to talk politics with even some Americans around here, and I find that there's just a little bit of a cultural stepping block when you're dealing with somebody from the UK, which hopefully we can get past and everything like that.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, there's certainly, you're definitely right in thinking that a lot of people sort of, their knowledge of America concentrates on the sort of larger, more well-known states and such. But it's a big country. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. As for sort of that political divide, I think that's felt probably everywhere at this point in time, for reasons justified and not so justified. But we'll explore that in time, I'm sure. Were you wanting to kick us off, or would you like me to sort of instigate the sort of the main theme of what I wanted to ask you about, really? I suppose the comment which caught my eye or caught my ears, I suppose.
Okay, before we do that, as far as you, whenever you can, since you do talk politics and everything, how would you consider yourself political leaning, like libertarian, conservative, liberal?
So it's interesting that
Centrist?
you put liberal versus liberal and conservative in the title because I'd say I'm a little bit more left wing than liberal. I'd say I probably lean more towards the socialist side of things, the firmly quite left wing side of things. But I'm pragmatic. You know, I'm definitely someone that rather than sort of assigning myself a fixed name and saying, yeah, this is all my views. I like to um, strive for justice, and I would say that whilst I'm very left wing, there's no reason I can't see myself working with someone that has views. As long as you're going for the similar goal of justice and social well-being and such, there's no reason people can't work with each other. It's just the justice has to be sort of central to that. But we will explore all of that in time, I'm sure.
So, a socialist, possibly almost communist, calling for the justice and well-being of people. This could get interesting here, and
I'm sure
so
it will.
I mean, one would say you being in the UK, do you guys still have a prime minister that is a Muslim prime minister?
So he was Hindu, Rishi Sunak, but no, he lost the
Hindu.
2024 election. Yeah, he's a Hindu man, but he lost the election to Keir Starmer, who I'm actually, I would assume either non-religious or Christian, but he's definitely one of those two. I actually don't know what his. He is an atheist. Okay, he's an atheist.
Are you an atheist, by the way?
So again, the label is an interesting one. I would say probably close. Yeah, probably that would be the one that best fits. But I wouldn't say I'm anti like Christians or anti any religious group. I would just say my views don't necessarily align with that of uh, those who have a faith, so to speak.
In what way?
In what way? What? In what
What
way?
what way do somebody, let's say like a Christian, I'm a Christian, I have Christian values. What ways do you think that my values wouldn't align with yours?
It's not about values as such. I think that there's 2 billion Christians in the world, right? And the idea that all of them have exactly the same views on things just by being a Christian is a silly one because there's 2 billion of you, right? So you
There's
can't predict what 2 billion people are all going to think. So I
okay.
see it as a
There's
person
a
by
lot.
person thing.
There's a lot of infighting with Christians. There's a tons of denominations out there. I do a lot of conversations with atheists, and to be honest with you, I find them to be more how do you say homogenized and kind of very similar thinking. I find there to be a lot more different variation in Christianity than I do in atheism, which is kind of a strange dichotomy because atheists, tend to say, "Oh, I'm a free thinker and I think for myself." Yet I talk to them, and it's like I've talked to one, I've almost talked to all of them. They all kind of have a same similar way of thinking. There's not a lot of diversity there, which is weird because you think as a Christian, you guys should believe in the same. You guys have the same faith, yet there's always this discourse or argument, between Pentecostals, Protestants, Catholics, all the other different sects of Christianity. And
So it's interesting because I wouldn't say that I agree with what you said a second ago about one group being more divided or homogenous than the other. I think it's a case by case thing across many different issues. And I think my point is that when I meet someone, my first thought isn't, oh, I'll put you into this box and now I know what all your views are. It's, okay, this person has said they're a Christian or an atheist or whatever, but what else do they believe and think? Why do they have these views? What are the views they have? Because Martin Luther King was a Christian, and so was Adolf Hitler. So it's not as though there's like
well,
oh, they are Christians, we can
that's
check off this box. So I think, and obviously they're two extremes, right? One good, one bad. We would want to try and think analytically about every single person we meet, and try and think about what the views they have um, mean for society, which is what I wanted to speak to you about. If you had, I had something to say, then I might have cut you off then. But there was something I wanted to come on to, which was the sort of driving force for what I wanted to talk to you about?
Sure. Yeah. And you do often hear from a lot of the media and a lot of liberal think tanks, and people will go and say, "Oh, Hitler was a Christian or he was a Catholic." But honestly, somebody can say that they're Christian, but honestly, he was involved with a lot of occult stuff, and he honestly hated Christianity. He did hate Christianity. One of his end goals was to end Christianity, but by playing the part, that's one way that he kind of got into power, by using
Well,
Christianity as a front. And also Martin Luther King, if you delve deep into it, he has a little bit of a Freemason background. So there's a lot more than just meets the eye and what's taught a lot in mainstream media, and a lot of the stuff you have to do some digging in.
I
Just
mean,
a sidetrack.
Martin Luther King was definitely a religious minister, and Adolf Hitler and the Nazis drew heavily on the works of Martin Luther, who was obviously a Protestant sort of figure of the 16th century or so. But
All right,
that's beside the point.
we
I
are
agree, but
we are
I agree that
separating those
people,
people.
it sort of is.
Martin,
What? Sorry.
we are separating Martin Luther from Martin Luther King, though, right? We are.
Yes, yeah,
You
no,
are
they're two
making
different
that.
people. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, of
all right.
course,
Some
absolutely.
people struggle with that.
No, it's the same name, but it's not two very different people. However, my point sort of is agreeing a bit with yours in that clearly Christianity is too broad to sort of say, well, all these Christians have the same thoughts. That's sort of a point I'm trying to make. It's too broad, as with any of the world's major religions. It's too you can't judge the whole thing based on one. I think it's important to be connecting it to the political, the social, the world it's in as well, to sort of make the arguments we do. Which leads me to something you said. I'm trying to find the exact phrasing, because I wrote it down in the comment I left for you. But essentially, you said that you felt the left were becoming or had become demonic and evil. I think was roughly what I'm sort of paraphrasing a little bit here, but I think that was the sort of central tenet of what you were saying. Is that something that you would agree with? Is that something that is something you believe?
Yeah. So whenever I'm looking at society and how it is right now, it's like I'm not even looking at really the political figures or the people that are in the party that are relatively in government. I'm looking at kind of society and how people associate themselves with those parties. Of course, one of the largest events that happened recently was the Charlie Kirk assassination. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yep.
And the reaction that you saw that from coming from the far left and liberals, and of course, and I think the way that you said that you like to go about people on an individual basis, and you don't like to lump people all into groups and stuff like that. I think that's a healthy way to go about it, because sure, you could do that, but there's good people, there's not some terrible left-wing people, and there's not some terrible right-wing people, but there are some bad apples in both sides. I think we can both agree on that. But one
Okay.
thing one
That's fine.
thing
Go ahead. Sorry, continue.
one thing that I mean, it just became very apparent that you know many people on the left, and again, this is going to be something difficult to kind of describe, but you seem like a fairly intelligent gentleman, so you
That's
may
very
be able
kind.
to understand this. Um, you know, the reaction that you were seeing on the left, specifically with a lot of liberals and people that were on the far left, where they're cheering, happy, celebrating the assassination of somebody who just wants to have an open discussion, much like you and I are doing right now. Not he wasn't somebody out there antagonizing people. He was a person. He was I would say a martyr for Christendom and freedom of speech, which that's what America is all about. It's all about being able to have an open dialogue, and for him to be executed in front of the world to see in a very graphic manner, in front of his family, his friends, a whole group of people that are probably never going to be the same after witnessing that. That's a traumatic experience, and to be in that crowd probably left people with severe PTSD and severe mental trauma. And then you have people that are celebrating it. And I always felt like the left has been on the wrong side of history for the majority of history. The left were champions of slavery. They were the South. They were the South.
Hang on a second. Now, I'll let you finish, actually. We'll come on to this in a moment. But
yeah, they were.
Okay. Well, as you can imagine, I largely disagree with all of that. But let's start from the start. Okay, so Charlie Kirk. Let's think about some of the stuff we said there, because Charlie Kirk, you said just the guy who wants to have a conversation, but this demonstrably isn't true. This is a man who poured his resources into making the life of people he disagreed with a living hell. If you were a professor at a university and you entered his radar, he quite literally set up a watch list for his followers and supporters to send threatening emails, to dox, to treat as though they are the targets of a harassment campaign.
Where do you have any evidence of that? Charlie Kirk was not openly. He was not
openly posted on his website, Lupin.
He was not there. Yeah. He was not there doxing people. What he did was challenge. He challenged the authority.
Lupin. He put a list of professors that he didn't like. Also, always critics of various injustices, professors of social justice themed courses and such, professors of any subject really that spoke out against him or right-wing politics and such. And he had a big list which he put publicly with their details, contact information, place of work, etc. And then said people ended up flooded with threats, bomb threats, harassment. Many of them had to leave the faculty because of the danger to their lives. Many of them ended up the target of administrative violence and sanction and such. So the idea that this person was for free speech is really just untrue entirely.
He was 100% for free speech. Also, he cannot control what people who follow him do.
So he literally put it on his website.
Like I said, well, look, there's a okay. He was also challenged by anybody, and I dare you.
Think about it for a second.
But I challenge you to find me any instance where he told anybody directly to go and harass these people or anything. There's a difference between calling somebody out, like you called me out and said, hey, I want to have a discussion with you. Hey, let's go ahead and do that. There's a difference between doing that and then saying, hey, go and find this person and make this person a living hell. He never did that.
But it's called stochastic threats, stochastic terrorism. So imagine, like you said, I obviously messaged you, left a comment, and now we're having this nice chat, right? But imagine if, as well as doing that, I found out where you work, the state you live in, your jobs, etc., and put it on my website, and just had this on a list of like enemies of the UK or whatever. And as well as that, I also, because obviously, I'm not like a famous person, but imagine I had thousands of fans and all my fans can see this. And yeah, sure, I've not openly said anything, but if you found this out, you might feel a bit differently about us just having this chat now, right? Like there'd be a different stake to it, wouldn't there?
Well, if you could provide me some evidence where he called for anybody to, go and make somebody's life a living hell.
But like I just said, but let's think about what I just said then. Like in this scenario where I've got thousands of fans, millions even, right? Because he was quite famous, like amongst sort of internet circles and such. I've got millions of fans, including the connections in the government and such, because he was, in the circles, as many people in the Trump administration and such. I've got all these connections. I've got quite a bit of funding behind me as well. I've got a lot of money, and I've put your name and details and job, etc., on a list on my website for all my fans to see. Would you feel a bit differently about this conversation now that we're having, if that was the case?
If I was a public speaker and a critic of a person that would be challenging my thoughts and ideas, no, I wouldn't be. I would be like, okay, let's have this conversation. I would hope that
you'd be completely fine. You wouldn't feel it because it's beyond just a conversation now. Because we're going to have this conversation, but beyond that, like, it's not as though there's any. It's a nice conversation we're having in this space. But imagine if I was a person who had firstly gone out of my way to find out all this information about you and then just put it somewhere in public for thousands of people to see, some of whom, because let's be clear, there is a clear and demonstrable problem with far-right violence in America, some of whom represent a danger to people. If I had done these things and your name and details were on some website that I'd created, it wouldn't matter that I'd not openly said, "Oh, come and find Lupin." It would still be a threat. It would still be something which is not okay to do. You wouldn't. I wouldn't then be able to say, "Well, yeah, I champion free speech," because clearly I'm tacitly making a threat to people that are speaking out about me. Surely you can see that, right?
I would have to see I would have to see the evidence and the details of that. I'm not
I
100.
can get
percent
you a I can get you a link if you'd like. It was on his website. It was quite open with it.
Sure, sure, yeah, yeah. I just say that I would say that
So I've posted an article link that details the stuff that he
you,
did.
you can post it in the private chat, and then I could maybe pull it up if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not fully aware of it, and I'll take what you say, somewhat truthful, but with also a grain of salt, because um, a lot of people like to misconstrue, add details, or leave out certain details. And I'm not saying that you're doing that intentionally. I'm just not familiar with it. And I followed Charlie Kirk for years, and I've never seen him call out for any kind of violence or to dox or to go and harass other people. Maybe he did have a list of people that he wanted to have a conversation with, a discussion. That's what happens whenever you are in a political sphere and you are a public speaker, and then you get challenged by other people and you challenge other people back, and you say, all right, that's fine. This is where you can find me, and let's have a discussion. So, I will say that you may have some information that I don't, and I see it right here. Let me see. It was on the Guardian. On the Guardian, U.S.
Yeah,
right-wing group, U.S. right-wing group targets academic. I could actually share it on the screen so people can see what I'm looking at, and so can you. So we could be completely transparent here. Turning Point's USA list gains fresh attention after it expands and notice some disproportionately names academics of color. Again, is going to be. This ties into one of my previous streams with identity politics. Let's see. So,
what do you mean by identity politics? Sorry.
Identity politics is whenever your whole political view is based off either somebody's ethnicity, race, gender, sexual orientation. Essentially, the person, how a person identifies, or things that they identify with, versus their actual political views.
But so in this case, they've said disproportionately targets academics of color, as in more, despite the fact that there's more non people of color in America, not more like non-black people and such. The academics who are on the list are disproportionately black and other non-white ethnicities and such.
Okay.
But evidently, the website that or the website that Charlie Kirk owns, because he founder of the company, is clearly not facilitating the open conversation purported by yourself to Kirk a second ago, right? Because if you're doing this kind of behavior, there's clearly a bit of a chink in the idea that he was just some person who liked having conversations. Yeah, this is someone that has actively made life harder for people that, and let's be clear, not even just like political figures, people who are working at a university who have then had their life turned upside down because they appear on some hit list that this guy's made, basically.
Well, you say it's a hit list, but I don't see it as a hit list. It's a watch list, and sometimes you do that. I wonder what these people said about him that would.
Well, many of them nothing, to be honest, Leap, and they were on the list because of connections to their area of study and such.
I
Like,
would have to look into this. And honestly, I don't think that he was targeting them because of their color. It just so happens that 5 out of 7 of them were black, or
do
people
you
of
think it's a
color.
coincidence?
No,
You don't think it's a coincidence, but
no, I don't. I don't.
the
I don't think. I don't think that he's specific because I've seen him debate many people, despite their nationality, race. I've seen him debate people that are on the left that are white, Hispanic, black, you name it.
why do you think though that the academics of color were disproportionately on this list though? Like why? Because there's lots of people studying in America, right? Like there's loads of academics and professors and doctors of various subjects. Why do you think on this list of this openly quite right wing and far right individual, there's more people who are of marginalized groups appearing on the list?
Maybe because they just fell into his site. I don't think that it was racially
Why do you
motivated.
think they fell into his sight though? Like what do you
I,
think might have made him?
probably their political views.
And what views might they be?
I don't know their political views, but I could almost guarantee you that those people were probably majority on the left and had left wing ideology. And generally what we're seeing now in left wing ideology, there's a big push for socialism. There's a big push for communism, and yeah, so a lot of black academics. We had something that was called oh man, I forget what it was called. Um, essentially, man, it was like, man, it was a curriculum based off like racial injustice or something like that, but it was highly
Critical race
skewed.
theory.
Critical race theory, yeah. So I know
So
it was a
that's
big.
it's interesting because we can actually talk about that because actually it's an area that I've studied myself actually. But just quickly, because we'll happily talk about left wing ideology and the beliefs of these people and such, because there's loads to say. But clearly, we can see that if someone is doing the stuff we've demonstrated here, there's a bit of doubt as to whether they're actually sincerely a champion of free speech. Because I don't know about you, but if I appeared on a list, on a watch list, and then suddenly I was getting death threats and such, I wouldn't say the person who owns the website that has this list on it is championing the free flow of conversation. I'd say that's the opposite, in fact. But let's come on to critical race theory, and because presumably this is one of the things that you're saying the left wing contributes to that evilness and that sort of demonic quality, right? Out of interest, can I ask what you mean by demonic? Like what are you just before you come to the CRT? What does demonic mean in this context?
The celebration of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I find that the left wing is separate. Has a It's not even almost a separation because whenever I was younger in my high school days, things like that, um, people weren't as anti-God as what I'm seeing now. Now they maybe weren't interested in God or didn't have too much of an opinion on it, but now it seems like there is a actual push and a hatred for a figure, which is even funnier whenever you think about it, because they tend to be atheists that generally feel this way, and they don't
Uh,
even believe in a god. So they hate a god they don't even believe exists. And also, I would say I'm kind of browsing through your catalog right here of videos as well, and it looks like the majority of people that you speak with tend to be white. So why is your stream disproportionately toward white people? Could you say that maybe you're in the same boat as him? Do you target these people, or are these just people willing to talk with you?
I mean, I don't have a watch list with these people's details and jobs and home address and such listed as Charlie Cook did. So I think there's clearly a bit of difference. Um,
Mm.
But I mean, I think that's a bit of a ludicrous comparison, really.
I
But
don't think
let's
so.
come on to so you brought up, you said anti-God. I mean, if someone's an atheist, then presumably they don't believe in the existence of a God. The hatred you're talking about, you might be sort of conflating the criticism of certain religious peoples, which I think in many cases is quite justified. There's many groups that use the iconography of religion and the label of Christianity to do quite heinous things, as we're seeing in the US and the UK and in lots of different places. And so
Where?
I think,
Like
sorry.
what? Like what?
Well, it's funny that we brought up Charlie Kirk, and we brought up sort of the people who do terrible things and such in the name of religion. I mean, we mentioned Hitler a second ago. Obviously, that's the sort of the extreme end of things. But a few steps
Very,
back from
very
that,
extreme.
well, yeah, but at the same time, the use of Christian iconography was quite present there. Now, I'm not saying, oh, if you are a Christian, then you're the same as that. Of course not. But clearly, within the wider networks of Christianity, there are quite large groups that have nestled into the wider structures of organized religion to try and use it for their own purposes, for quite bad right-wing purposes. Let's
Like
look at
what?
Okay, so look at all the free school meals programs that get cancelled. Now, in my mind, one of the easiest ways to help people, as something which is found across the Bible, Jesus very clearly fed the poor. He, turned the basket of bread into something that feed 5,000, right, according to the Bible. But here you see Republican politicians, increasingly under Trump, target these policies, say, no, we can't, we're going to just cancel this program. No free school meals. You must go into school lunch debt instead. Now, I don't know about you, but that is horrendous, right? Like, imagine a kid basically being stopped from eating at lunchtime because the GOP doesn't want to spend money on kids having a good education and a good well-being and such. Like, that would be an example, I would say.
So this would be something off of the Project 2025, which Trump is not associated with that. That is something that's been made up against Trump.
Well, we can come on
Um,
to that in a second, but in terms of what I just said there, like, demonstrably, many school districts are seeing their ability to actually feed their kids cut and stopped because of Republican right-wing policies. Doesn't matter
okay.
what kind of clearly there's people who claim to be Christians doing very terrible things like that. That's just one example as well, right? Like, there's many things I could say, but that is something which just clearly conflicts with any decent morals or any decent way society should be,
Well,
right?
that cuts both ways. Yeah, Christians can do awful things. Christians are just human beings, just like everyone else, and Christians can use Christianity um, as a tool to, and it's a very twisted way to use it, and a very, I would say, non-Christian way to use it. So
I agree.
if they're using it for negative things and promote, generally it's a very twisted and warped view that they are using it for, and the tactic that they're using
I
is
completely agree.
dishonest and not in line with actual Christian values.
I completely agree. These people clearly have not read the teachings of Jesus, right? But here they are as people in the White House in charge of massive parts of the US and getting to represent large parts of American Christianity, certainly, and doing these terrible things. So I think there needs to be, therefore, a conversation about how in these right-wing circles there is clearly something quite wrong with the link between right-wing Christianity and sort of this takeover of various factions within American society, and how they use it to exploit society for their own wealth. So then when we turn this then to look at Charlie Kirk and to look at organizations, one of the reasons he was criticized so much was because he was right there doing the same thing. Like, many
Well,
times
he
he
he promoted Christian values, but I don't think
but
ever in a
if this
negative
is
way.
but he was right there agreeing with these policies, right? So if he promotes Christian values, but he's promoting the defunding of programs critical to kids eating, like basic nutrition and such, there's
So
some dissonance, right? There's an error that's happened here somewhere.
So let's talk about like something like defunding the Department of Education. Okay. To somebody who's out of the loop or not in the know, you're like, he wants to defund the schools. He wants to defund the schools, but they're not thinking, why does he want to do that? Is it because the American school system is failing at a very high rate? There's an increase in illiteracy, an increase in kids dropping out. Kids can't read and write. So
That, though, is because education has long been defunded and understaffed and under-resourced because of right-wing cuts and right-wing management. But to zoom back in a second, that is an issue in itself, right? The defunding, but the fact that someone in the GOP, or not just someone, lots of people in the GOP in right-wing circles say we have a program here which funds kids getting meals at school. We're going to scrap it. You're going to have to pay now. Someone said that, and that person, those people were calling themselves Christians. Now, like I've said a few times, I don't think that this, because some people say, oh yeah, Christians have blown it, it's all their fault. Like, I think that misses the point, because it's not, Christianity is a broad church, right? This is right-wing Christianity. This is a right-wing movement which has taken over large parts of the sort of common image of Christianity and such, and has misappropriated Jesus and these teachings to then target the poorest in society. You know, kids that needed a program to eat, otherwise they're going to starve. They're going to have a poor nutrition, which is going to massively affect their life. Have lost out on something which was feeding them. Now, this quite essentially is the point. Like, how can we sit here and say, oh, the left are demonic and evil and such, when evidently there's a right wing movement right now ruining lives across the country?
So there's a lot of corruption and a lot of waste that goes into some of these programs, and in order to correct them, you'd have to replace them with something that works and something that is more viable. And to say that they're removed completely is not true. One big thing was SNAP, which is essentially like food stamps for people. There's been a mass uncovering, which anybody who's been paying attention for any particular amount of time has known that has been taken advantage of. There's been widespread fraud and abuse of the
Not
system.
That isn't quite true, but we'll
It
come
is.
on to
It is.
that in a
It is
second, though,
very.
because
Very true.
we
It
were
is very true.
we were just talking. We can come on to that in a moment, but we were just talking then about the program which was actively feeding kids at schools, which got cut by Republicans, presumably to fulfill some right wing. Like, for as much as you said, oh, Trump's not part of Project 2025, which, I mean, let's be clear, he very much is involved, but it wouldn't matter.
He's
It
not.
wouldn't, but that's sort of immaterial, because he agrees with cutting the food stamp programs, and people in Project 2025 do, and the GOP at large do. So it doesn't matter like what they're calling themselves; they're all doing the same thing, which is pretending that oh yes, we are Christians or whatever, and then we're gonna, in the name of Christ, destroy all these kids' lives. Like, so evidently
So
there is a right-wing Christianity issue here, because there's people who use the iconography of religion to serve their own wealth and serve their own power. Now,
I'm looking.
I
I'm looking at some of the things. It says it reduces the eligibility. It may reduce the eligibility for some, but
yeah,
that could
which
be
means some kids.
because maybe some kids, and it's not necessarily the kids, but it could be their parents that are taking advantage of it, or that don't necessarily
Okay,
need it.
but
That causes that leads to either fraud or taking advantage of a system that essentially costs us money.
so
Also,
even if that were true, which is very, very rare, like it's over-reported how much this is actually an issue. Like, this is true in the UK as well. Like, we have all sorts of, oh, people are taking welfare benefits and spending it on HD TVs. It's far, far more common that they're not actually claiming stuff they're entitled to. Like, statistically, it's more likely that they didn't get something they were entitled to than cheated and got something they weren't. But even in the scenario where the parent is secretly not actually that poor, surely
mhm.
you would rather. Surely it's better to accidentally spend more and have some kids but didn't need to have it having free meals than now just cutting the whole thing, and now some kids are starving just because you didn't want to pay out potentially a kid that didn't need it. Like surely, what does Jesus say, right? Like if you're struck, turn the other cheek. Surely to apply that metaphor to modern life, surely the Christian thing to do would be like, okay, well, even though maybe there's a chance some kids are not needing this money we're spending on them, it's worth it to save even just one child from going hungry. Like surely that should be the logic here. Not, oh well, we must cut the whole thing because
It,
we're gonna stop that kid from cheating it, even with like a million and out losing out.
it's funny because I hear you use words like starving and preventing them from eating. Yet one of the largest issues that the United States has right now regarding health is obesity. People are eating too much. They are overweight.
So
So
that's really
it's kind of
interesting, actually.
you can't have it to where the kid is starving, yet at the same time is 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. There's something amiss there.
So child malnutrition is still a thing in the US, but you raise an interesting point. Why is it that there are children in poverty who are of an unhealthy weight and eating poorly? So one of the issues that many urban areas face is a lack of access, or certainly for the working class, sort of poorer demographics in cities, a lack of access to nutritional food. So fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, food high in protein, food rich in nutritional fibers and such, right? Because they don't have access to it, because they are either priced out or because there's no supermarket accessible to them that has the food they need to be able to make a balanced diet and a healthy diet and such, they are forced to rely on heavily carbohydrate-rich food that are high in calories, food which isn't the most nutritional but will fill you up, right? Like imagine like a takeaway or
Yeah,
sort of frozen foods.
highly
Yeah,
processed, not healthy food. Which is also
exactly.
kind of funny that you bring that up because there's the Department of Department of Health and Food Regulation. I can't remember exactly what it's called, which is ran by someone who's far left. You might know him, RFK. Has
Far,
a
far left
Yeah,
in the Trump administration.
yeah. RFK was a left wing.
He was a Democrat and then switched to Republican. He's never been far left. He's always like far left is like you said a second ago, right? Like communist and such.
So
He's never been that.
well, okay. He was on the left, but
He was a Democrat.
Trump brought him into his cabinet, and one of the pushes that they're making is the Maha movement, Make America Healthy Again, to get rid of these overly processed, unhealthy food for children and provide them with healthier options.
Okay, but can you see that this is sort of just lip service, isn't it? Because it's all very well having someone come out and say, "Yeah, I can do all this. I can go to the gym and you need to get healthier and stuff. Do 100 star jumps or whatever," and then cutting a program which actively tries to get food to these kids,
Do you not
cutting
think that
programs which fund the schools to be able to. Because like let's think about it for a second, right? Like if you genuinely wanted to improve the diet of kids across the country, right? You would need to plan it not just as hit. Like, it can't just be like an individual thing. It's got to be structured. You've got to think, okay, how are we going to get healthy, nutritional food into everyone's diet for millions of kids across the country? And that's got to be systemic. You've got to fund the schools, fund the kitchens, fund the transport, fund the networks around these children so that they have the ability to see this realized, right? Because it's not as though I mean, like anyone can say it or be healthier, but it takes changing someone's like life around them, lifestyle to do that. And so, if you want to do that, you've got to think critically about the society that we're in, and that is ultimately betrayed by this right-wing vision. Because whilst I mean, you put this on the screen, look, but this doesn't actually.
Well, let's
Um,
read it. Let's read it, shall we?
okay, but this doesn't like if you say all this and then cut programs which fund the school's ability to do this and cut the welfare checks that people get to afford the food to buy stuff as well, how can you then claim you're making people healthier? Can you see there's a
Well,
dissonance there?
Well, I would focus on K2MC's comment right here. Americans, Americans shouldn't be dependent on the government, and he says that we shouldn't be dependent on the government to subsidize those things. Maybe parents could provide that extra money for those kids. So,
I mean,
you
I
know,
agree, right? Like we shouldn't.
we shouldn't
So
be
you're gonna say something?
depending on the government to essentially, like, the government is there and does offer benefits, and it does offer help to those who need it, and I say it's fair for those who do need it. They should have access to it, and to my knowledge they still do. I know some people that still receive food stamps, and they haven't been affected by it. Also, they restricted some foods like ultra processed foods and things that are unhealthy that are no longer eligible for SNAP, with the incentive for them to go for healthier options like fruit, vegetables, whole milk, instead of sodas, chips, all these things that are detrimental and, like you said, essentially empty carbohydrate, ultra processed foods that don't have any real nutritional value.
Because okay, well, I mean, on a fundamental level, I agree with this comment, right? No one should have to rely on an external force to be able to keep them going, right? Like there should be something to allow for self-independence, right? Self-independence, independence, and being able to do it. But obviously we don't live in a world where this is the case now. So we need programs, whilst we have the structures we do at the moment, the economy we do at the moment, to be able to. Hello, Q. How are you? To be able to do that, right? Like the whole reason the welfare program exists is because before that, people were starving. People were literally living in complete poverty. And so the welfare program has done a massive welcome programs of not just the US but the Western world, right? Like they've done a huge deal in making people's lives livable, be it
They've
through
they've made
state
they've made people
education.
they've made people slaves and dependent on the government. The
No, they
welfare
haven't done. They've
the
stopped.
welfare
Like, what was
system
life
is
like
overall
in?
has a negative effect on people because it
That isn't
decentivizes
true.
people working. Yes, it is true.
That
It is
let's compare. So let's think.
the welfare state is there to keep you under the control and have daddy government
No,
take care of you, rather than incentivizing working hard and being financially responsible.
so we know what happens when welfare is cut because we saw the lines at food banks when SNAP was delayed. In the UK, we've had many similar situations where benefits have been decreased and people's like starvation is more common. People's use of food banks is more common. Like it's not that isn't the case. But let's rewind back to before the welfare state in early 1900s, 1800s through the Industrial Revolution, when poverty was rampant, when people's like life
Are
expectancy
we going
was
back to the Great
below.
Depression and whatnot?
Sorry, well, yeah, before the welfare state, like we can see clearly the benefit that the welfare state has had under this capitalist system because before that, life was interminable for people who weren't wealthy enough to pay to survive in the market. It's vital that we fund things like schools, transport, libraries, food access, and
Who's
such.
we?
So, like the collective of society. Now, in an ideal world, we would all own things collectively. It would be like you wouldn't have mass resources as the tool of
I,
one or two people's
I,
profit.
I don't
But
want. I don't want to share the stuff that I earned, that I work for, that I
we're
did,
not
that I
talking about you, though. We're
that
talking
that
about
that
like
that that, that,
Amazon.
is, that is what collective society does. It takes and distributes everything. It takes
Not
from
from
the.
you. Not from
It does.
unless
It does.
unless you're a billionaire. Like I mean, I
You don't have
assume
to be
you're.
a billionaire.
Sorry.
You don't have to be a billionaire.
Well, that's the people we're thinking about here when we're talking about redistribution and making things fair are like Amazon, who own like as much as pharaohs do and such, or Walmart or something. We're not thinking about like me and you, who are just average people in the world. Like we're thinking about those who own significant stretches of land, of resources, food, electricity, those who control the things we need to survive. Like the reason the stuff isn't accessible, that person who brought up parents a second ago, K2MC85, The reason the parents can't just pay the money for the kids themselves is because all the money they get is being spent on things they need to survive, right? So
or
the
they're being
if they sorry,
or they're being taxed to hell due to democratic policies.
so they
So they get less money in their paychecks due to a higher tax increase, which the Democrats are generally always for.
the
Increase the
Democrats
tax.
typically support taxing wealthier parties more to pay for social services.
That's what they
Not,
like
I will
to
stress,
use.
not less than all the European countries, and the quality of life, as a result, is not as good, shall we say? But if you made this argument, right, because the GOP makes it all the time, right? Oh, we'll lower taxes, and therefore you don't have to pay as much. But then the bus service in your city stops. There's fewer buses. Then your SNAP benefits get cut, and you have to go to a food bank and hope there's stuff there. Your school district gets shut down because there's now not enough power to make the school run. The consequences of not funding things in society for everyone to use is a society that doesn't work anymore. We see this in the UK, where every metric has shown that since austerity, since they started cutting the budgets of public programs, life is worse. And I should stress as well, one of the key teachings of Jesus, which is tying us back into this sort of religious theme we've got, he taught explicitly that it's not good to hoard wealth, and that you should share what you have with others, and that you should be considering the everyman, right? When Jesus fed the masses on the hilltop, he didn't think, oh well, actually all of this is mine, and you're gonna have to pay me if you want a piece. He did it anyway because he knew it was good for people to eat. Right?
And I would say the majority of food banks, the hospitals, the reason that we have the reason that we even have an education system, the reason that we have food banks, the reason that we have hospitals and some healthcare, all of that is based off of Christian values. As a matter of fact, you'll find that those institutions were founded by early Christians. I have to let my dog out. I got to let him out really quick.
I'll talk to chat. Don't worry. I'll talk to chat.
Sure. There's a couple things, and I want to touch on a couple messages as well. It'll take me just a second. One moment.
Awesome. So 6 of people watching in the chat right now. Fantastic. I say fantastic. It's not. It's not my stream, but no, Q. It's great to see you. K2MC85. I'm sure we'll bring us up in a second, but. If you need an incentive to be kind, are you really? I wonder about the Christianity of this individual, shall we say? But so, are you back now? Sorry, am I? Have you let your dog out? Or
yeah, I just had to let him out the room.
Awesome.
Let me touch on this comment real quick that you brought up. I guess it's somebody that you know of. He says, "Where are the parents going to get this money? Pull it out of their ass." You're going to say work more, but that takes one or both parents away from from home time with their child. So there are daycares and everything, but I think that touches on an even bigger push with feminism and this women empowerment movement, where it's incentivizing women whose natural role is to be kind of the caretaker and caregiver of the home, and generally the man would be the breadwinner. And so, in an ideal world, and how it was not too long ago, the men would be out there; they would be providing for the family, while the woman could be there to take care of their children. And studies have shown that is the ideal way for it to be. That women are actually happy that way. That a woman.
What studies?
I don't have them. I don't have them. I've seen the studies, and this is stuff that I saw years ago. But a lot of the times, women are more happy to be at home, taking care and spending time with their children, versus slaving at a job, for whatever little bit amount of pay that they get, and being separated from their child. Those women tend to be less happy. But society has now worked in this to where with women independence and I don't need no man, and I could do all this by myself. It's a perverted way of women's independence but studies have shown that women are generally more happy whenever they are at home with their children, taking care of their children, and letting their husband do their rightful natural thing. And that is biblical, that the
Right.
husband
Okay. Okay.
should be
So a few
should be
things.
the
Firstly,
breadwinner.
could you minimize the you've shared your screen? Are you fine to minimize that just so that our faces are
Maximize it. I'm just playing. Let me go ahead and get it off.
awesome?
And where are we at?
And we've
Okay.
banned it. There we go. Right, awesome. So secondly, you said people are so daycares. You said people could send their kids to daycares, but they also get defunded because, as you've just said, education's being defunded. So that again speaks to the right wing stuff. But more importantly, Q makes the fantastic point in the chat. Capitalism is the reason people are unhappier when they're like, what? Of course, people want to be with their kids and at home versus working some 9 to 5 job, often something they don't really want to be doing but have to afford their bills and such because it's all privately owned, right? Like, of course, if you gave someone the choice between having a nice time with your family and living the best years of your life with your kids and such versus going out to work because you got to afford electricity, food, heating, water bills, etc. at the end of the month. Like, of course, there's going to be different happiness there, but I think we're not connecting what's going on here. Like the reason feminism and such existed was because of patriarchal norms, which basically denied roughly half the population human rights, said they were literally the property of men, said that they weren't. This stuff you're saying about them being more natural caregivers, that is just socially produced, right? Like, of course, if you have said for like
It's
over 1,000.
true.
But if you've said for over 1,000 years, women stay at home and look after the kids, like of course the group you've said this will then have learned the skills to do that. Like, I don't have kids. Do you have kids, Lupin? Are you?
I don't have children. No, I know people
But
that
like,
do
if
have
you
children.
okay, but if you did have kids, I would hope that like if slash when we have children, we wouldn't be like, so, kids go to your mother. I will not. I am not suited to deal with you. Like, you'd hope you'd be like an attentive and loving father, right?
Yeah, I would give. I
Of
would give.
course.
I would give the children the care that they want, but I would also want to provide for my family, and
Yeah, of
I would
course. But
want. I would
that's
want to make my wife, and also I think that society is pushed for the breakdown of the sacrament of marriage and the
So
and
ignoring that for a second, sorry to cut you off, but just to go back to what I was saying a second ago, you would think that like with your child specifically, not like every single child ever, your kid in particular, you would think that you and your partner would be the best suited people like equally to look after this kid, right? You're the child's father. You would want to care and love them because they're your kid, right?
my main obligation would be to make the money to bring them home, and bring it
But that's
home.
just the means to an end, right? Because you have to make the money because if you don't, you can't afford to pay your bills to keep your house going.
Of course, you have to make money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a means to an end because the main thing you want to be doing is raising your kid, right? Like spending time and loving the child that is part of your family, right?
Yeah.
So
You can do both, but I'm willing to give up some of my time to work extra hours to make more money in order for my wife to be taken care for and for her to be there to take care of the child.
of course you want, yeah, of course in this society now, yeah, of course, because if you don't do that, we can't afford food, heating, etc. All the things I said a second ago. But imagine if I said to you, well, unfortunately, you are a man, therefore, this woman is now better suited. This woman who has never even seen your child before is better suited naturally to look after your kid just because of their gender, which is ultimately just something like socially constructed, right? Like it's not, there's just I just can't believe what I'm hearing on this because I don't think you actually believe what you said a second ago about the people being better suited and such. Ultimately,
I
we're
do.
all, but you don't, mate. Like surely you would rather spend time with like you and your partner want to spend time with your kid, right? So
I would want my child to be taken care of the best as possible. And if that means that I have to spend less time with my child, which I would still spend time with my child. And Terry, I'll let you in a moment. I just want to finish up the conversation with this gentleman because, once three people get in, it can get derailed. I just want to finish this point off. Um, I would be more than happy to take extra shifts, even pick up another job in order to provide what is necessary for the family to live, and be more than happy to have a wife that is willing to be at home to take care of the child and raise the child there, because a mother has a natural instinct to be a caregiver. And yes, I do truly believe that.
Why though? Like, there's no like, so even ignoring that for a second, if you genuinely
Holy
believe that, you should then surely have a problem with, as Q says again, the capitalist system which stops people from being able to live off one income. Like, if you want, because you said you would take up extra shifts to support your family and make sure that you've put bread on the table and such, right? But now we live in a world where the price of all the things you need to survive, so food, water, bills, etc., all the stuff I said a second ago, that's not enough on one salary. Unless you're quite fortunate and able to have quite a lucrative career, chances are you'll actually need two people working in the household. And in fact, lots of households have the kids working as well because of how,
Well,
as soon as they get old enough, they end up having to work too. So surely then
there is a problem with inflation and the cost of living now that has risen in yet. So you
and
may
that
have
is
to
why welfare exists. That's why,
sure,
whilst we still have the
if you need it, that's fine. But there are people that take advantage of it as well. So if you
but
do need
do
it
you
and they
think
can get
though?
it, then yes, you can be receiving of that healthcare. But I'm not a fan of widespread fraud
But there's
and
not
people getting
widespread fraud.
scammed.
Like I'm sorry,
There is
there isn't
widespread
widespread
fraud.
fraud.
Why do you think we have cities like Minneapolis where we have all these Somalis that don't work yet have designer clothes, they have new cars, that they are they the cost that they uh, take by living here far exceeds what they provide back to the country. And
So
Terry,
I'm not
I'll, I'll,
sure.
I'll let you in, Terry, but if you could keep it like kind of like radio kind of rules, don't be like, I don't want too many distractions and too many like way off side topics. So just kind of keep it on point. But go ahead, I'll let you finish your point and then I'll let Terry in.
Awesome. And I will say, Ted, by the way, because obviously this is a Lupin show, I'm happy to chat to you, Terry. I'm fine to chat to you both now, but I'm also happy to chat with you, Terry, on a separate time as well. Okay? But thinking about what you just said there, so again, as Q, it's reading my mind. This isn't something which is genuinely happening. Like, I know there's a lot of coverage of these things, but this happens in the UK as well. And whenever we actually look at the example of this, it turns out there's not been mass fraud. And it's also interesting that we focus on Somalian people here. Like, there's no like national or sort of immigrant status to this. Like when the fraud does happen, again I'll stress it's very very minimal. It's not like it's only people from this country doing it. Like it's just a thing that happens sometimes when people want to try and like get money quickly, which wouldn't happen in the first place if we didn't have the bad economy anyway, right? Like it's surely we can see that rather than sort of policing and interrogating the average person just trying to get by, even when they, on the rare occasion it happens, try and cheat the state or whatever, we should be thinking, okay, why does anyone have to go through this ridiculous process to try and essentially put food on the table? Like, for as much as someone can say, oh, they're getting designer clothes and cars, which again I will stress, like it's not like it's not like even when the fraud happens, it's like a million people taking Armani suits and Ferraris and such. It's like they scrimped a few extra pennies somewhere to I don't know, buy some new shoes or something.
They've
Like,
literally displaced people in white communities. They poured them in, they've dumped them
but
essentially where these
hang on a moment.
made Muslim towns where white people have been pushed out because the cost of living, because that community got an influx, increased the cost of living so much that people that have been staying in some of those areas that have been there for years can no longer afford and are essentially forced out and become homeless.
Price rises happen everywhere though. It's not as though like it's the Muslims have done this or the Somalians have done it. Like that's just everywhere this happens. So people get pushed out, right? Like there's no there's no actual substance to this.
I would imagine that you would know that firsthand. Are you seeing a big increase in fluctuation of Islamic and Muslim influence and people in your
No,
country?
not at all. Not
Really,
at all.
there's not a SA epidemic, sexual assault epidemic that is happening, and
Well,
a high majority of that is caused by people that have been brought into your country that don't share your values.
so several points there. The existence of rape culture, as you said, the increase of sexual assaults and such, which I don't actually think I've not seen the stats of 2026 or 2025. But again, let's compare the situation now to 50, 100 years ago. I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of the status of gender equality and such. I would say that even if there was an increase, you wouldn't it wouldn't make sense to say, oh, it's this religion when there's no um, inherent connection between race or nationality or religion or whatever and sexual assault. It's a problem of sexism and patriarchal norms rather than that of a religion.
You don't think it's
Thirdly,
cultural differences?
no, because I think every culture in the world pretty much has an issue with sexism and
It's
misogyny. I think
much higher in the Middle East and Indian cultures. The sexual assault um, is
often
highly.
these regions are firstly in the global south, fewer resources, less education about lots of things, but critically, I mean, like you say, Muslim and such nations, like former colonies, lot of them had the misogyny exported by the West. Many of them, these nations where we see more crime and such, they don't have the resources to be able to abate much of it. Lack of education. But in the Western nations, I mean, it's only 100 years or so that we've even had equal voting rights. So it's not as though oh yes, the West is perfect and everyone else is bad. There's no I think connection here. I don't think that's a very solid argument. I can see Terry's joined. Hello, Terry.
You don't
Hi.
think that there's a connection? Okay. You
I
don't.
just wanted to make a quick comment about why women are caregivers. This is part of our biology. We're the ones who bring the child into the world through our bodies. Our bodies change and grow milk for the child to eat. They need to be close to us when they are young in order to have. There's also a bonding that happens between mother and child. It's an animal thing. It's a survival thing. It's most practical for humans to have women be with their children when they're small. And that's why it's done that way. That's what most mammals do, period. It's natural. So to act as though it's being imposed on us, this is just a function of our biology. Men and women are different, and that's why these are the roles. It would be hard on women to have men doing all the caregiving while we are supposed to go out in the world, while we also bear the children and then give them up, cut that animal instinct off, and have to somehow arrange working while the man is with the child when he doesn't produce the food they need. Do you understand why this has evolved? It's not to oppress us.
Both parents are responsible for raising their child, aren't they? The fact that because you're right, Terry, right? It is important to have that time bonding with the child that has been born, right? But that's just as true for the other parent in the situation. It's not
Right.
the case that
These
the man
roles
would be detached from their child.
No.
It's the way that our society has formed, which is, as has been said earlier on this show, right? The fact that it's been the expectation that the man has gone out into the world and earned money whilst the woman stays at home and looks after the kid.
The woman
has
sacrifices
informed
his
that.
body, the man sacrifices his work and time. Each
But that's
sacrifices
not-
something else. And
That
we
doesn't
don't really
have
have
to be the
a
case,
choice
though,
in the
does it?
matter.
Sorry?
We don't when women are burdened with having to bear the children and work at the same time, it's too much to ask.
Well,
And
that's why we have.
that is why the birth rate has gone down.
So you're
So
again pointing out the capitalist issue here, right? Because
No,
in
it's
a
not
good
a
society,
issue.
of course it is. Because, as you've just said, right, it's unfair to expect
We
people.
keep moving the goalposts.
Sorry?
Can you just
You've just
admit that
interrupted me,
it's
Terry.
okay and
Terry?
it's not oppressive to women that we are
Terry,
given-
you're speaking over me. I'm trying to respond to what you said,
because
right?
you keep
You
changing
just
the
said,
goalposts.
Terry, Terry, you just said that it's important for there to be, you're not sent out into the world straight away after giving birth and such, and when the baby has just been born and such, right? So
I'm not even making
clearly,
points.
and
I'm trying to get
you've
you to
interrupted
see.
me again, Terry.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's important for then a society to say, okay, someone is about to, a family is about to have a baby. Let's give that family resources and time to let this child come into the world and such, right? Like to let them have the time to raise this child. But society doesn't. Lots
They
of
Yeah, they
do.
states,
do.
Women get maternity leave.
Men get
which is
paternity
constantly
leave too in
targeted.
most
Yeah,
places as well.
which is not as much as it ought to be. Academics and scholars have said that it isn't
By
enough
who? By
for
who?
healthy development.
I'm just
Whose
making a
authority?
point about the fact that society has made women caregivers because it's natural to do that. It's a function of our biology because we are the ones who bring the children into the world. We're different than men. Period.
Parents both have a responsibility in
Yeah,
raising
they
the
both have
child.
a responsibility, but it's a different one.
Yeah,
Men do not bear the
Look,
child in their
biology.
body. Men do
Sorry.
not create milk in their body. Men do not push the baby out of their body. It's
Well,
a
it's worth
completely
stressing as well
different
that
thing that men contribute.
not all societies would necessarily agree with that that last statement too, right? Not all. It's not as though the social role and the biology are exactly the same, right? Like there's still that difference that takes place. But none of this really disputes what I said, right? Like there's still
Where is the
the
society where men are doing that
sorry.
en masse? Where is the society that has ever existed where men are the functional
Well,
caregivers and women are out the ones going and hunting and producing and bringing home the wild boar? Like, where is that?
Great point. Name one society where the roles are
We're
reversed,
different.
where the men are
That's all I
relegated
want.
to stay home
I'm
and
gonna
take
go
care of the
back into the chat,
children,
but I just wanted to.
not necessarily.
and
Not
the women are out
necessarily.
there to be the
Oh.
breadwinners. Thank you, Terry, for joining. She'll still listen to you.
Well, I mean, I must say, her listening wasn't particularly amazing then, but you know, she makes an interesting point, and that is one of the other points we have about the way the world is formed. Right, many societies have, beyond just the sort of division of labour between men and women, have not had patriarchal norms as the backdrop
Can
of
you?
society, and they've also not had necessarily the sort of connection between biology and then building gender from this interpretation of an understanding of biology, right? Like there's more that existed in the world prior to it, but a lot of these societies were found in the subcontinent, so like in India and such, and Bangladesh and such, and what we'd call now India and Bangladesh, or in Africa, and the people who went there from the West, so my country in the UK and then like France and such, didn't accept these people as legitimate. They said, no, we need to teach you our interpretation of Christianity. And so they erased basically the societies that existed before for their own one. Similar to what we see in America, right? Like the indigenous populations of America were many of them were extinguished. They were killed off because it was the interest of
They were
the
conquered. They were conquered. Yes.
colonized. Yeah. So
Yeah, sure. That was the
like
thing. And before they were colonized, they were killing each other, and there were tribes within, and they were taking land from each other.
yeah,
There were
which is
different
what
Indian
everyone.
tribes.
That's not.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they do
everyone
that.
was
So
doing that, right?
I
So
just don't want you to I don't want you to try and make a point of either stolen land or we took this land. No, that was during a time of
well,
conquest and
I mean, it is
conquering.
still stolen, right? And I mean, I think it is still.
No, it's not stolen. We
Well,
fought over it. They fought hard. They lost, and we took our reward for that and made the country. And they lost. They lost what they lost. That's what it is.
That doesn't sound very.
That is
That's not a
history.
very Christian value, though, is it? I mean, it's all well and good saying it was a time of that, but
You're conflating Christian. You're conflating Christianity and conquest. You know, I mean, The best thing that we did for the Indians and indigenous people was to bring Christianity to them.
Are you serious, Lupin?
A lot of people have this fairy tale Disney imagination in their mind that, oh, all these other tribes, they were living in harmonies, and they were living in harmony. They were so in touch with nature, and everything like that. No, some of those tribes were brutal, where they would scalp each other. Scalping was a very real thing. They would commit genocides against other tribes. We came over. We colonized them. We colonized. We won a war. Essentially, a war was fought. They lost. We won. We gained the benefit and the toils of war, if you will, the bounty of war, and that included land. You know, it's history. It's happened, and that's what it is. You can't just sit there and tell me that, you know, the tribes were peaceful. Yeah, there was global conquest. Right now, it's crazy whenever I hear this from people in the UK. When you guys there's a literal influx. There's a literal influx of people that are invading your country, and it's just like instead of looking at it for what it is and just for what it actually is, you want to take the side of virtue signaling and political correctness, and not to sound racist and everything like that. Whenever you guys are literally getting invaded, and there's a massive influx with a culture that does not want to assimilate with your country, that is diametrically opposed, has a very, very strong rape culture, and they don't want to assimilate with you guys.
Okay, let's so well, just to rewind quickly. It's very interesting, by the way, that you say about this group are invading the UK, but you've just sat here and said it was completely fine. It was the time of conquest, and it was fine for the West to basically exterminate millions of Native Americans.
Yeah,
like,
and
do you see the irony?
No, there's no irony. I see the irony in that you guys are allowing it to happen for political for the sake of being politically correct. For the sake of
Lupin.
I don't want to offend anybody, but also I'm going to let my country get taken over and not be outspoken because it might come off racist and things like this. You guys are at a weird point in time where you can't even say like offensive memes, that you could get arrested for posting offensive memes online.
Lupin. Like just to, I mean, I'll stress that this is not like happening, but clearly, can you see the irony in you literally a second ago saying, the Indians got conquered and we gave them Christianity and it's all fine and they just, you know, it is what it is, and then you're now saying supposedly, the scary foreigners are coming to the UK and taking over and it's a bad thing and blah, blah, yada yada. Like, do you see the irony in that? Can you see there's a bit of a dissonance?
I see that there's an irony that you guys are allowing it to happen.
Yeah, I just heard you say that, but
for political correctness.
But do you see the irony in what you've said? Right, ignore what you think about the UK letting it happen. Do you see the irony in when it's people going to America and imparting their values of supposedly Christianity on them?
Yeah, we do something about it. Trump did something about it. We could take immigration.
The native population.
We could take immigration, for example.
Hold on. Stay focused on this bit for a second, like, because you've just said, like we were just talking about, because we're going to go back to the Native American population and such, right? Because there's a lot to say about that. But do you think it's ironic that you say all this stuff about the various scary foreign populations, the non-British or whatever, coming over and changing the UK? When
Islamic culture, highly part of Islamic culture.
That isn't. I mean, how can you sit here and say that when you've literally, if by what you've just said, Christian culture was literally destroying the way of life of the indigenous population of America? Like, it's the exact same thing in this narrative that you've said. Because I'm going to stress as well that the Muslims are not doing this.
Now it's happening to you guys. You guys.
So it was good. It was good when it was America getting changed by Christians, but it's bad when it's the supposed takeover of Britain by Muslims.
It was colonized. It was
So,
conquered. There was a battle that was fought. The team that won,
what's the difference then?
won, and now whenever we win, we get to change kind of the rules. We get to change the immigration policies. We get to choose, how things work.
Okay, so then what's the difference? Why are you annoyed when the same thing happens supposedly in a different? Because I'm going to stress as well that this is not happening. Like, there's no Muslim takeover. Like, there's people of the UK is of many cultures. There's no one like inherent British status. Same as there's no inherent American status. But do you see the irony?
American status. You should be American. If you're in America, you should be American. You should
assimilate. Yeah, so then all the Christians can leave then, and we can go back to the Native American tribes, right?
Christians adopt Christian values and American values.
So the Americans weren't Christians, though. They were the Native American population, right? So then all the Christians can leave, and we can get back to like Apache and such, right? Based on that logic.
The United States is a Christian nation.
Yeah, which removed the existing nation before. They're not the Americans from 1776 don't trace back to the inherent land. They're from Europe originally, aren't they? So then,
yes,
based on what you've just said,
there was battles that were waged.
So it's the same thing then.
It's the same thing, and you're going to be on the losing end. And
so it's not about.
You really have to delve in to what the end goal of Islam is.
So okay, but how can you not see the? So how can you're saying all these things about Muslims and Islam and such, when Christianity in this narrative that we're discussing, or people who claim to be Christians, did the same thing? How is it any different? How can you say, the Muslims are bad and scary, when in the literal history of the country that you're defending, the exact same thing happened? Like they literally did exactly what you described. Worse, in fact, actually, because no Christians have been put in internment camps and had there's been no Muslim constitution.
There were plenty of wars between Christians and Protestants and Catholics that were extremely bloody. Millions died.
Well, there we go. That suggests that the history of violence isn't limited to certain religions, but is something found everywhere in the history of the planet, because it turns out the history of humanity is one that's complicated and has lots of things. Not this religion is better.
Quite evil, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's evil. Man is evil.
Not evil, just the history of
man is evil.
Not inherently.
Yeah,
no one's
inherently. Well, see, as a Christian, we come to the conclusion that all man is evil. That's what separates us from animals. Okay, we're separated by animals because we conceptualize and we partake in things that are evil. Animals don't have the comprehension of evil. They can do things that are good or bad, but they don't sit there and plot and do things that are evil and have evil intent. They do things for survival, and they base their life off of instinct. Man is inherently evil. It's pretty much embedded into our genes. We start doing things that we would consider immoral, that we're not even taught, that we just start doing as children. We start doing it.
Okay, but can you see that these are things which have been socially produced, right? So would you describe the takeover of the American continent by European settlers as an act of evil?
It was an act of conquest.
Was it evil, though? Whether or not it's conquest. So it wasn't evil. Okay, so they didn't need to do the things they did, right? They
did, though. I can't go back and change history.
No, but what I'm saying is in 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and didn't land in America, actually he landed in the West Indies, right? But when Europeans came to America, they didn't have to, there's a timeline, because it's not this would always have happened. There's a timeline where if we didn't have the same factors, we could have cooperated. I say we, it wasn't me, right? It's not us. Our ancestors could have cooperated. We didn't have to see the things that happened. Now, it's hard to imagine that because we've lived through human history, right? We are the product of all that came before us. But
yes.
It didn't have to be like that. we could, like everyone has,
But
even when we face the hardships of today, there are things that are in our control. And so when we now in 2026 are acting, we don't have to, like you said about, oh, man is inherently evil. Well, no, I don't think anyone is inherently anything. I think we are both socially informed and influenced by things, but we also have some autonomy. We were describing earlier the looking after your kids and such, right? Like, imagine if someone said to you, well, I believe in conquest, so I'm going to make sure your kid works for me in a slave mine somewhere. Like, you wouldn't just say, oh, well, it's just the natural conquest of the world. You'd be like, what on earth? Who is this guy? Get him away. Like, this guy's a creep, right? So inevitably, there is some element of actually we can think critically about what is happening in our planet. And so when we then look back to history, because you're right, it's happened now. So what is the responsibility of us now is to think, okay, loads of really awful things happened in human history. What can we do now to make the world a better place? How can we ensure that how can we reduce the violence of the world? And part of that is thinking critically about our politics and about the world we have and such. And
well,
that
may be your solution, because you you're like I said, I don't even really believe in atheists. I don't even think atheism exists. At the very best, I think you could only be an agnostic, because, I mean, sure, you could believe that a God doesn't exist, but I think you truly always in the back of your mind almost know inherently that there is a God out there. You're just trying to see. But that's beyond the point. As a Christian, the answer is very simple. Christianity is the only solution. There's only two religions in the world. There's Christianity, and then there is religion. Okay? Every other religion you have to work for. Christianity is the only one where it's not about what you do, it's about what Christ did for you. And what Christ commanded Christians to do is to love your neighbor and love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Okay?
Were the Christians loving their neighbor when they sailed to America and started
they provided them with Christianity, and they showed them the way of Christianity. And in the long run, it made America one of the most, if not the most, highly developed country in the world.
Would Jesus see it that way? Do you think?
Well, Jesus, this world doesn't belong to Christians. Aren't for.
No, but thought experiments. I'm like, if we got a third caller and it was Jesus Christ from like 180 or whenever, right? And you just said that, right? In the long run, it was fine because America's now great or whatever. Do you think he would agree with that? Well, what you've just said, that it was fine and Christian to kill?
I believe in God's. I believe in God's plan and God's judgment, and even
but
if
that's not what I've asked you.
If it seems unjust to me, but God declared it to be so, I'm going to accept God's judgment.
But did God declare it to be so? Like you just said, love thy neighbor, right? What was loving in any of the stuff that has happened? Because it's not
bringing them Christianity again. You guys
hang on a second. But a lot of the ones that are dead, they didn't get brought Christianity.
They fought for it, but they again. See, there's this Caillou says says they love the natives so much that they genocided them. Meanwhile, before the settlers came to America, the tribes themselves were genociding each other tribes. They were fighting each other.
Two wrongs don't make it right. Like the fact that, like we said,
don't think that these natives were they were warriors. They were
not one person
valiantly. Okay?
Lupin, not one person is saying, "Oh yes, Native American society was a utopia." Not one person. We're focusing on the action of European settlers who came and, in the name of Christianity, killed off millions of them.
We brought them Christianity, and there's also freedom of religion. Yes, it happens. War happens. Violence does happen.
Against the teachings of Jesus, though, right? Like, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. He didn't say conquest.
Yes, but there's there is also man brings evil in this world. God doesn't want to
No,
see us
but
all kill each other. God doesn't want us to see each other, but God does give us an autonomy. God does give us autonomy. God does allow evil to happen. And what seems like evil, you say, oh, there was a genocide. Last time I checked, there are still indigenous Native Americans in the U.S. So if they're genocided and yet they still exist, I
that
mean,
isn't that's not a contradiction. Genocide can happen, and there can be some people who were left over at the end, right?
okay,
But
okay. So
we can
then,
also like
there's still some people left over. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So then that doesn't. There's no argument there. But clearly, there's some like logical inconsistency with the idea that if God has, if there's love by neighbor, be good to others, turn the other cheek. But Christian conquest of America was good because they got Christianity, the ones who were left. And like, it's not
It
even true
was
either, is it? Because like they weren't.
it was colonialism,
Yeah,
and
which
then
is
on top of
bad,
that,
which is not a good thing.
you know, it's funny that you mentioned that and that you want to pile it all on Christians. Yeah, I have some people in the chat that I know that want to say, oh, the founding fathers weren't even Christian. There were some that weren't even Christian. So it's not like Christianity would even have the majority rule. At the end of the day, it's man's desire to have control, and they will do whatever it takes in their power to have control. But overall, Christianity being spread throughout the country for the world is a positive thing. At the end of the day, God's commandments is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor. Are we the best at practicing that? Far from it. Far from it. Man is evil. Man does atrocious things. Okay?
Right wing society. Like, so we're looking, the founding fathers, right? Yeah, they were clearly Christian. I'm not sure what.
There was a mixed bag. There were some secularists. There were Christians.
They're in the religious elements at the heart of American sort of founding. Definitely, was present through it, right? But
amen. I'm glad that you said that, because I've dealt with some atheists that want to fight tooth and nail and say that the Christian foundation is not what makes up, the rules and law of the United States as we have it now. It is highly.
Well, I don't think it's values. I don't think it's controversial to say that there was clearly a religious influence in the founding of the U.S. Of course, that's the case.
Hey, you know what? I give you credit. I found some people that cannot fathom that. So, kudos to you.
I mean, you might not like where I'm going a bit, but
go on.
So, the point I'm trying to make is that rather than it being like man is inherently evil and Christianity is the only thing, like, we need to think about what the purpose of these things were, right? Because American society, I mean, as we've just discussed, right, like the genocide of the native population to create the settler state, which then became America. America had chattel slavery, and the people who did it claimed it was in the name of God. They said, we have the right to own these slaves in the same way that we own cattle or own livestock or whatever. And at the time, they claimed that their Bibles told them this. They said that it's our divine right. God has given us the liberty to do unto these slaves as we would do to any property of ours. Now, would you say that they were acting in Christian name? Would you say that is something which is Christian?
I would say slavery has been part of humanity since the dawn of time.
But specifically, do you think that what I just described there is something which is, do you think it's Christian?
Well, Christianity does not endorse slavery. It says that it happens, but in the New Testament, it calls and says that the taking of somebody's freedom and taking somebody's life, taking ownership of somebody's life unrighteously is not a good thing. It's it's not good. Like I said, I will give you the point that man will use Christian theology, albeit, and I'll say in a sick and twisted way, to try and justify awful actions. I will say that.
So I'm not really like I'm I'm not fussed so much for the purposes of this argument here, but I'd like this very second. What the Bible says isn't really what I'm focused on here. Would you agree that people who called themselves Christians did impart slavery? Like, not just a few Christians, like there was a wide organization within Christianity that was central to the chattel slavery that America had for 100 years or so, right?
I think that sure there were men that were that would either claim to be practicing Christians or were Christians, participated in slavery. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So then, based on that, can we then also apply that same people misuse Christianity to do terrible, use the iconography of Christianity to do terrible things?
When you say iconography, what are you meaning?
So, like has been raised in the chat, right? People have taken the ideas of Christian supremacy and
Christian
slavery
supremacy.
like the idea of it, well, like we said earlier, right? Christianity as the one true thing, and then the rest of the world is religions and such. Like, have used the idea that there is some truth in slavery or in the Bible and such to then justify bad things. In that same logic, clearly, throughout history, there have been many right-wing groups which have then used, or right-adjacent groups that have used this Christian iconography and Christian sort of theming to justify terrible things. Not man specifically, but within the Christian sentiment here. Not all men. Not all.
Man has used Christian doctrine in a warped way to do evil things. Yes.
Not the men specifically here we're talking about, because there's across the world, absolutely terrible things happened. We're speaking about American history though.
And you as an atheist, what is even wrong with slavery? What does that matter to you? What makes slavery even wrong? As an atheist, what moral grounds do you have that slavery is
basic
wrong?
Belief in human rights? But
what if somebody wants to be a slave?
Sorry.
People want to be slaves. There's some people that want to be slaves. Should you grant them?
Come on, Lupin. No one wants to be a slave. No one reaches that conclusion automatically by themselves. Anyway, within the Bible, because it's a big book, there's lots of different books within it. It's written by quite a few people. There are lots and lots and lots of things written, some of which have been put in the chat, which are interesting. But do you think that there is a worthiness to being sort of a bit critical of how a lot of people within Christianity, because I'm not coming here to be like, Christianity is terrible and rubbish and stop being a Christian, blah blah. Like, as I said at the start, my aim is on the right wing elements which have become quite loud within Christianity, right? Like the central thing that I've that brought me sort of to hear it really was when you said the left is demonic and evil or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But we have illustrated across this whole call the genocide of the Native Americans, the chattel slavery at the core of American history. The founding fathers owned slaves, right? The cancelling of people's school meals, the violence we're seeing against immigrants and such, all done by people calling themselves Christian, who say, we are representing God's name, we are acting in Jesus' name, despite the fact that they're doing things which are heinous, which are closer to the evil that you described in the sort of start of this, right? So, do you think there is a worthiness to being actually critical of, rather than just sort of following along with this, being like, hang on a second, there's something quite wrong here, because this is going miles away from the whole sort of loving all the creations of God and everyone being equal and such, and Jesus loving those in the world, right?
I think that there's evil in the world, and I find that you are focused so much on Christianity when Christianity was a driving force in ending slavery. And I'm surprised because I'm looking at the highest key findings from 2023 report, highest relevance for places with slavery: North Korea, Eritrea, and Eritrea, Mauritania. Okay. Top countries that practice slavery: North Korea, Eritrea, Mediterranean, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Tajikistan, the UAE, Russia, Afghanistan, Kuwait.
May I? Could you put this list in the chat, please?
So quick Google search.
So you just typed in top slavery nations,
What
because
what
I don't
country,
necessarily like
what country
inherent,
practice slavery the most currently?
because how we think about slavery there is obviously I don't disagree with the idea that there are slaves in these countries, but
Mm.
this isn't, I don't think, any contradiction to what we've been saying here. In fact, I would very much agree that slavery is still a thing, because we live in a world where people want slave labor because it's a good way of making money, right? If you have a slave, you don't have to pay them, so you can then make more profit, which points us, rather than thinking, oh, this person is bad because they're from this country or whatever, we should think, okay, the capitalist structure of the planet enables the conditions which makes some people trend more towards slavery. Sable in the chat makes a fantastic point. I was again, you're all reading my mind. Slavery in America was abolished with the 13th Amendment, which bans it except as punishment for a crime.
Yeah,
Coincidentally, America.
That is the largest example of slavery in the United States. Whenever you commit a crime and found guilty and are imprisoned, then yes, you become a prisoner to the state. You lose your freedoms and you are essentially a slave to the state. 100%.
So then Christianity didn't abolish slavery in America, because, as you've just said,
slavery still exists. It exists all over the world.
I agree, which is why we should, rather than sort of thinking, oh, man is evil, and try to say, oh, Christianity has saved us from slavery or whatever, we should be being critical and think, okay, clearly there's an economic reason as to why all these societies still have some people in terrible labor conditions where they're not being paid. We didn't list the Congo a second ago. That is a massive. The Congo has huge populations, basically, and enslaved, working in mines, extracting rare earth metals. And the reason this happens isn't because they're inherently evil in the Congo, but because they need the metals to produce all the electronic goods that are enjoyed the world over, right? And that doesn't mean that if you use a phone, you are evil. It means the networks that we exist in, which we don't have control over because they're privately owned, are set up in a way to maximize profit at the expense of literal slaves, so that money concentrates in the hands of capitalists. Our criticism, if we want to truly advocate the justice, shouldn't be aimed at non-believers or at the left, but at the capitalist structure and the right-wing structures of the planet and such. Because surely, as you've just said, the fact that slavery is happening everywhere means there are some pretty major problems with our planet.
We should spread Christianity to those nations.
But what would change, because the people who are owning some of these slaves and acting in this way, like, they are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, like they're all religions, right? All peoples, atheists as well, right? There's no one group doing this. It's everywhere, because the world universally operates in link to the capitalist markets, right? Like, there's the slaves in American prisons who are unjustly being kept as profitable tools for corporations and such, and for state prisons or whatever, state, private, whatever. Like, they're in the same set of market conditions as people in the Congo or people in Southeast Asia in sweatshops or whatever. All these places.
And what landed them in that situation? Why are they slaves now? Why are they slaves?
Why are they slaves?
Yes. Why are they slaves?
Well, because of the economic conditions which
because they committed crimes.
Not the ones in the Congo who were born. I'm talking about
the ones in the United States. In the United States, the ones that are considered slaves, prisoners, have put themselves in a situation where they made decisions that have left them in a state of institutionalized slavery.
Okay, so even if that were true, which it very much isn't, if we take that at face value, there's thousands of people in America who are in jail, who haven't been tried and found guilty of a crime. They're just there because they either couldn't post bail, or they're being held waiting trial. So they aren't all guilty of crimes. But even if they were, and even if even if it's the worst case scenario and they're all unforgivable criminals, that isn't Christian. It's not Christian to own slaves.
I'm not saying that they're unforgivable, but I'm not saying that. I can forgive the worst. I can forgive the worst offender, whether it be somebody who does something with children or anything. I can forgive that person. However, they are going to face human punishment, and if that includes having your freedom stripped from you, then that's something else. And there's one argument. There's an argument to be made. What is more humane? Would it be more humane to give a person 40 stripes for committing a crime, where the judge has to sit there and watch?
Well, it doesn't matter. Well, I'll come on to that in a second.
Or locking them up for years, where it breaks up the family. The judge doesn't see any of the consequences. It breaks up the family, and it causes a vicious cycle, because generally whenever the family's broken up, the child has more probability to end up with a troubled childhood with more of a struggle.
None of that.
Guess what? Ties into the welfare state, because the government likes to put them people on welfare, and Lupin, it becomes a vicious cycle.
Lupin, surely
Owen,
you can. Surely,
sure.
None of this is whether or not all of this is the case. We can come on to that we can explore that fully in a moment, right? Because it's very important and interesting. But your issue should be with people who call themselves Christian and then try to imprison more and more people, as you've just said, right? Like, people, when they're put in prison, it has a massive knock-on effect to the society they leave behind, the people they leave behind, the prison itself, the state,
everyone. It affects a lot of people.
Exactly.
The family, people have to pay taxes for their housing, for them to get food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then 100%. We should then be saying, okay, why are we incarcerating millions of people? Maybe the supposedly Christian people who are fine with the amendment saying, yeah, it's okay to enslave people.
Why are we incarcerating people? Why are people committing crime?
No, but if you just surely, if you can see,
you act like we're just tossing people in jail for
well,
you jaywalked. You pay a fine. You go.
Not everyone can pay the fine.
Time. Yeah, if you can't pay the fine, there's an old-fashioned saying: if you can't do the time, then don't do the crime. If you can't pay the fine, then don't do the crime.
As you've just said, if the crime is something arbitrarily enforced, like jaywalking, and they can't afford the fee to get out of,
I guarantee you that I will almost dare to say that there is not a single person in jail for jaywalking currently, right now. I would know. I would be hard pressed, or if I may, give myself a little wiggle room, less than 1%.
There's also a lot of people who are in jail for less than jaywalking, for jail for nothing, because, as we've said, they're being held there waiting for their trial, right? Which they're still in the system. They haven't been convicted of a crime, and they're still being held. But none of that matters, right? Really, because if we can all identify that just chucking millions of people in prison has a negative effect on society, we should instead be thinking, okay, why are people committing crimes? Because it's not just, they are criminal, they are evil. There's always a history behind society.
The Sorry? There's a breakdown of society, the removal of God from our country.
Well, I mean, there are still crimes happening when more people were religious, right? Like, the fact that there's still, the criminal, in fact, there's actually less crime now than there was, in the past, right? So
thanks to Donald Trump. Thanks to Donald Trump, yep, our crime rate is down from 2025. It's down 25%.
I mean,
good job, Donald. Good job, Donald Trump. That's what I voted for, baby.
I mean, that's an interesting meme in itself, right? Like, suppose if Christianity teaches many things opposite to Jesus taught many things opposite to how Trump has lived his life. But that's a side tangent. That's something I'm not going to touch for a second.
Trump is not the pastor in chief. He's not the pastor in chief. He's the commander in chief. I don't look up to Trump as the moral framework for every individual or anything like that. However, I think Trump is doing a very good job as the commander in chief and the leader of the free world.
What? So the ICE, all the ICE stuff? Because you were just saying that crime rate's down, but clearly it's not, because he's criminalized.
He's enforcing the laws that are already on the books. I've already gone over this. Those laws have been enforced. Yes, Obama deported more people than Trump. Bush did the same. Yes.
No, okay, so
by that
Obama,
if you want to say that Trump is being tyrannical, you would have to at the same time say that Bush and Obama were also tyrannical people for enforcing the laws that were already on the books, that are on the books.
So left-wing people
and America,
like myself,
America is majority. The majority of America, over 56%. Over the majority of America is for deporting illegal immigrants. It is.
Okay, if that is to be taken at face value, which we're not going to do for a second.
Does that mean that I don't like? Does that mean that I dislike them?
We're getting
no.
Okay, so Bush and Obama. If you're left wing like myself, there's no gotcha here. We are also critical of those two for many of the same things. Clearly, though, there's a bit of a difference in sort of an escalation that Trump has taken with ICE, who are currently murdering their way through various cities, smashing up town centres, abducting people at random. They've detained over 100,000 people, probably thousands more than that, actually. These are ridiculous things to have happening in a society, because it doesn't lead to a conducive blatant injustice, isn't it?
Let me see. How many deaths has ICE caused within the last
6 or 7 this year, right?
2 years. Okay. Now let's compare that to the amount of deaths and violent crimes that illegals have committed. Okay. There is a give and take here, and
what give and take?
And the deaths that ICE has, quote unquote, caused.
If we're going down this is
was a causation. This is why, like I said, and I preface this before we even talk. It's always a very difficult thing to speak with somebody who is not from this country, that has this ideology that's pushed on them, whether it's through media or people that they're influenced, or if you just hang around a bunch of left-leaning people at the same time, you get this idea in your brain, and it causes you to not think critically. And you see life with a very heavy bias. Okay, whenever it comes to the border, okay. Americans went out and they voted for border security. Border crossings are down to 1 to 0%. Okay, that's what America wanted. That makes America safer. The reason why you have doors in your home, the reason why you have doors in your home, the reason why you're surrounded by walls is for what? Protection and privacy. So you can let in, so you know who's in your home and who's not supposed to be in your home. And if somebody broke into your home, do you have a right to defend yourself? Or do you say, well, you got into my home, I guess now you got to stay here. I mean, you touch ground, hey, you're in. It's ridiculous.
There's a lot of things you said, Ben. If ICE had existed when the Native Americans were in America, would they have been fine shooting your... I know, but if it's okay, well, explore the hypothetical. Would you have been fine with your ancestors being shot because they came illegally to America?
My ancestors did not come here illegally.
Are you? Do you mind me asking? Have you got European heritage in your family?
My parents came here from Cuba to escape communism. They came here seeking asylum because they saw that communism was going to cause Cuba to become a shithole, which it did become a shithole, and it still is, even though it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, great people, hardworking people. And whenever those people that actually experience communism and socialism and see it, because it sounds nice and we're going to distribute everything.
Okay.
until you realize that disincentivizes people for working hard and for people to make to work hard to strive to do better, to strive in the workplace. Whenever communism, I mean, communism eventually will collapse any society. That's why communism has not worked in any society. Every country that has tried.
Okay, like we'll just.
My parents came here legally because they saw the writing on the wall and they knew that America was going to be the bastion of freedom and the only option they had to have a better life for them and the children, including me and my other family members.
Okay, we're gonna park the stuff you just said about Cuba and stuff just for a second, because I want to focus on the ICE situation and such, right? You said a load of stuff there about it was quite a long bit about like immigrants supposedly responsible for all these deaths and such, and that justifies ICE killing people because it's a trade-off or whatever. And you said about how your family had to leave because of stuff in Cuba.
They had to leave because they would have been living
so they left
and or dead.
So they left because they wanted a better life in America, right?
I have family members that stayed there that got executed by the government.
So your family left Cuba, or some of your family left Cuba because you wanted a better life in America.
They left Cuba, claimed asylum, and came here through the legal processes. They went through Ellis Island. Like I said, I have a family that while they were while they were in Cuba, my grandmother was a nurse, my father was a doctor, and my step grandfather, because they got a divorce, whenever this is after they came to America. He was, I believe he was a salesman. I can't remember exactly, but whenever you come to the United States, you lose all the title and credibility of that. Whenever you come here, you're essentially a blank slate. It doesn't matter your accomplishments that you had in Cuba. It doesn't matter if you were a doctor or you were a plumber or a sanitary worker. You come here, you basically have no experience and you have to start from fresh.
Okay, so firstly, do you think that's a bit unfair, right? Because if you like, it's a bit bad.
That's a sacrifice.
But I get it's a sacrifice. Do you think it's unfair though? Do you think that's fair? That someone could be a qualified doctor and then be told, no, sorry, it doesn't count, start from scratch.
They came here and assimilated and they worked very hard. And
that's not what I asked you, Lupin. I don't doubt they worked hard. I'm asking you to think it's fair.
Whether it's fair or not, it's just how it is. It's just
good.
It's just the way it is.
Surely that should be like why is this the way it is? Let's try and change it. Let's try and think critically. But secondly, let's say that because I don't doubt that that people flee terror and such, people flee danger. But let's say that for whatever reason, the legal route wasn't there. It's a hypothetical. I would never say that your family are not legally here or whatever. But let's say in this hypothetical, there was not a legal route, and the choice is stay in a country that you fear you might die in, or
there's always.
But let's say in this hypothetical, there's not. Let's say
there's always a legal route. There's a legal route to come to this country.
But let's say there's not in this hypothetical.
Okay, so if my family came here illegally, then
it's exactly the same. You have exactly the same life.
No, I don't know if it would be the exact. I don't know if it would be exactly
in this hypothetical. In this hypothetical, it's exact. Nothing has changed in your life, and then one day, I don't want to get personal or anything. Are your parents are still around, right? Like they're not like. I'm not going to. Okay, fantastic, brilliant. I just didn't want to like say anything that would. Anyway,
so my grandparents.
Fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. In this hypothetical, one day, your parents sit you down and say, "Look, Lupin, just got to tell you, I know we've lived a life in America all this time, but we actually came here illegally. We didn't actually go for proper routes. would that justify?
I'd say I didn't hear nothing. Sorry, la di da. Sorry.
I don't blame you, right?
I think my parents would be smart enough not to even say that. And if they did, my parents would also be smart enough to stay away from law enforcement or put themselves in a position.
Exactly, because you know that the threat that then is put on your shoulders, right, is massive, because ICE are currently smashing up the country basically to get people who they believe are illegal. Now, do you think that would be fair?
It would be fair. So, if they got deported and were here illegally, would that be fair?
So you as well, right? Because they're not just like, you know, they're doing like whole families.
It depends if I would be an anchor baby or not. You know, it depends on whenever I would be born.
Is that fair though? Is that just? You know, you've lived in America your whole life, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
But how is it fair though? Like, just think about it seriously for a second. Like, you have literally, you are American, 100%.
So if somebody breaks into your home and they stay there for 5 years, well, they stayed there for 5 years. You might as well let them stay there forever.
A home is different to a country, isn't it?
You have no. This country is my home.
But the country is your sort of like social home. It doesn't make sense. But your literal home is wherever you're doing this now, right? Like
my home is on the land that is in my country. Yeah.
Like, sure, but literally it's not, because like it's not as though 1,000 people could walk on down the Mississippi River or the Grand Canyon, and you would have no way of knowing, because it's clearly not your home. It's the
fact of the matter is, if you break the law, you are running the game, and you're running the threat of that law being enforced. And if that law entails you being deported because you came here illegally, you didn't go through the proper.
Many of them do, by the way. Many of them get abducted at their like confirmation hearing, or when they're trying to get papers. Many of them are just on like overstayed visas they don't realize have expired and aren't given the tools to get updated. And none of it should matter anyway, because the point isn't in this little bit here. I'm asking you whether you think it's fair, whether you think that's a good way to
I've already told you it's fair. Yeah, if you broke the law, then you run the chance of the law always catching up to you.
Is this law just?
Yes, in this case, yes. If you if you enter a country illegally, you have trespassed. You're in a land that you have no right to be in. This is the same for any other country. I can't just go to any other country and just say, you know what, I like it here. I'm going to stay here.
Why not? That's exactly how the Americans came to the country in the first place.
Because guess what? The other countries have laws too, and they follow those laws and enforce those laws.
Don't doubt they have immigration laws as well, but I'm asking why it matters. That's how America got started. People came and said, I liked it here. And why should it matter anyway? In fact, that's another central point, actually.
We've already gone over this. There was imperialism, and there was a time of conquer and conquest, okay?
A time. But why is it okay then and not now?
Because now we've established rules, we have established laws that are being enforced. So there's your answer. So now there are laws that are being enforced that make it, yes, legal to do what they're doing.
Why now? Why not then? What's the difference, really?
Because America has a right to know who's in their country and why they're here, and that is for the safety and benefit for the American people.
They've killed people, just random bystanders.
Who's they?
Like ICE have killed people. Safety.
Name me some.
Sorry. Well, in fact, actually, let's get up the list.
Name me some. We got about like 15 more. We'll call it 15 more minutes, I think.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. 8 people have died in dealings with ICE so far in 2026. I'll put this in the chat. Let's see who we've got. Luis Gustavo Nunez Cáceres, Geraldo Lunas Campos, Victor Manuel Diaz, Haradi La, Renee Nicole Good, Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz, Heber Sanchez Dominguez, Alex Preti.
Okay, so
that's
I'll go
8 so far this year.
I'll post it in the private chat. And you know how many people that the gangs, Venezuelan gangs, Mexican gangs, how many terrorists that come through our border. We have radical Islamists that are coming through our southern border. They're coming through our northern border.
Radical Islam.
Yes, they come through the border.
Okay, we could apply that same logic. That's a
China-
dangerous game because we could apply that same logic to any American ever who kills someone, couldn't we?
Chinese spies come through ports of entry or
Chinese
soft
spy.
area. Yes, Chinese. Believe it or not, there's such a thing, brother.
Like, okay, but can you see that this is a silly argument? Because I could
It's not
very
a silly
easily.
argument.
Well, look how many murders have been committed by American, like people who've born in America, whole family has been in America since like 1900 or whatever.
What does
Like-
it have anything to do with anything?
Well, exactly. What do these people have to do with the millions of
But
people
they
with immigrant backgrounds in America?
They shouldn't have been here in the first place. The fact
Like,
that they,
why- okay,
the
imagine
fact that the fact that they came to the country illegally, they were already broken the law in that aspect, and then they're going to come to the country and commit more laws, and especially violent laws.
No, but
We're
you
not
can't
talking about
say,
we're not
Lupin.
just talking about a traffic ticket or jaywalking or some type of minor misdemeanor, minor infraction. No, we're talking about people that have murders, they have sexual assaults, they have rapes, they have child molestation.
That's not
Yeah.
unique to people from these backgrounds. That's everyone in every society ever, because these are social problems. They're not.
But we're putting priority on people that shouldn't be in this country, and we are saying, hey,
for nonsense
these people,
reasons.
these
For
people,
bad reasons.
these people shouldn't be in this country in the first place. Not only are they in the country illegally, but they are causing havoc. They are killing
But they
American
aren't,
citizens.
Lupin. No, they
They-
aren't. And the same, like, the deaths are happening, like, regardless of where someone's from. Death just happens in capitalist society anyway, because it's not good. Like, you know, school shootings and car crashes and
None of
healthcare
that is
deaths. Like,
good. None of that is good, and they pay the consequences. They go to jail.
no, but they're not, because ICE aren't, like, they're not some force for justice. They're just going after random people who are having a background.
Lake and Riley, 2024, 22-year-old nursing student murdered on the University of Georgia campus. A Venezuelan national who entered the U.S. illegally was convicted in the case. Jocelyn Nungare, a 12-year-old girl in Houston, Texas, who was strangled. 2 Venezuelan illegal immigrants were arrested and charged. Rachel Morin,
None of this.
a 37-year-old mother of 5 in Maryland who was raped and murdered, a Salvadorian illegal immigrant, was charged. Aiden Clark, 2023, an 11-year-old boy who was killed in Ohio when a minivan driven by a Haitian national collided with a school bus. Brady Helling and
Lupin.
Haley Helgson, 2025, 2 teenagers in Minnesota killed with a head-on collision allegedly caused by an illegal immigrant with a high blood alcohol level. Larisha Thompson, a 2025
Lupin, come on, we get the point.
a South Carolina
This
mother,
isn't
up
making
to
any case.
murdered in a case where 6 illegal immigrants were charged. Yes, no, there is a case to be made. You know,
But there's
these
not,
people,
Lupin, because
if
I
they
could
want
very
to be
easily-
criminals, if they want to be criminals, let them be criminals in their own country and cause havoc in their own
Lupin,
country. They
this
don't.
is a silly,
They don't
very
have the
silly
right.
point to make.
They don't.
Lupin.
They don't have the. They don't have the right to be here, and they can go cause havoc in their own country. Let us send them back to their country. Bon
Lupin.
voyage, adios. You know, arrivederci, sayonara, avidazen, goodbye. Get
Right.
out of our country if you're going to come here
Lupin.
illegally and commit crimes.
Anyone can read a list of crimes committed by illegal immigrants, right? But
Yeah.
we could easily, as has already been done in your chat now, by the way, list off right-wing mass shootings, list off crimes committed by American natural citizens. There's no, like, inherent...
They're American citizens, and they are going to be. I'm saying that's terrible. It's terrible. It happens, but they're American
so there's
citizens.
no point pouring billions into ICE to try and chase some imaginary, like, immigrant scare thing going on. Like, there's
like
no...
like Matasavis Truchas, like MS-13, like the Mexican mafia.
Yeah,
like
non-issues next to the wider problems of society.
Yes. Okay. So we're just gonna just ignore all these gangs, all these violent criminals that shouldn't be here in the first place, and just say, oh, well, bad things happen in your country between your own citizens, so
How is pouring billions into ICE to just smash up random neighborhoods solving any of the problems you list? How is that stopping anything?
You know who's smashing up neighborhoods?
ICE right now.
Illegal
Have you seen what they're not seeing?
Illegal immigrants are smashing up neighborhoods
No,
and
they
causing
are.
massive amounts of crime.
They are.
To protect American-born citizens is a good priority to have, and to have
There is
illegals
no
removed.
dichotomy between you said yourself, right? Like your own family have an immigrant background. So
They are American. They are American. They are American citizens.
But ICE aren't. They don't care. They're going after anyone who is, of an immigrant background. That's why so many people who have legal status have been detained. That's why so many people who have been disappeared without any due process. That's why people have.
I've heard
been
that
obstructing justice.
They may be wrongfully detained, or they may be.
Can I ask as well, by the way?
They may be.
Why
held,
you even care?
But why do I care?
Yeah, why do you? Aren't you meant to like?
I love the country, and I want to see the country be a safe and protected country.
Aren't you meant to have no masters before no one? Everyone's equal before God, right? So why should you care about nationalities?
Because we're commanded to follow the law of the land as well.
The laws of God, right? God doesn't say anything about nationalities and nations.
God has said whenever you're in a nation that you should follow the laws of that nation.
When did he say that? What, America? What?
Oh, well, America wasn't a thing when that was said, but it's been a core principle.
Jesus says follow laws when they're bad because you just have to. He doesn't say do what's right and stand. Jesus famously, did practice Christianity in the time of Romans when Christianity. And that's the point actually as well. Christianity was illegal in the time of the Roman Empire, right?
The Bible instructs Christians to obey governing authorities and the law of the land, as these are established by God, provided they do not conflict with divine commands. Jesus exemplified
divine commands
to render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. However, if human laws directly contradict God's laws, believers are told to obey God over man.
So God's law is that ICE can shoot people in the head.
That's government. That is government law.
You said apart from when it contradicts with divine law. So was that a divinely sanctioned murder?
If ICE does a shooting that is justified, or ICE has the authority to enforce the rules and the laws that are on the books, and that causes a death because people are obstructing and interfering with lawful legal orders, then those people have reaped the consequences of their actions. Sorry to say.
So God sanctioned. God sanctioned our death, did she?
Renee Good, whenever she decided to accelerate and run over an ICE agent or use her vehicle,
come on.
She reaped the reward of her actions that cost her life. Okay, if she would have stayed home. It's funny because I see all these protesters that they don't even know who ICE isn't. They can't tell ICE from FBI from local law enforcement. They just see somebody in a uniform and automatically say they're ICE when they've gone and interfered with people who are with local police and federal FBI agents, and other people that are executing search warrants for people who have committed violent crimes and or large drug smuggling and distribution. Yes, they will go.
Why is it always like drug smugglers and MS-13 gang members? It's like, have you seen where ICE doing these raids? Like, they're just in like schools and at work and such. They're just at random place. They're just trying to get anyone. There's
ICE, and what the orders for ICE are. This is why you don't see riots in states that cooperate with the orders that ICE has been giving. What ICE wants to do is go after the illegal immigrants that are imprisoned. They want to go after them first.
That's not
now,
true, Lupin.
It is true. It is true. Whether you want to believe it or not, it is true. Now, whenever you have a state governor or a mayor or somebody who says, no, we're not going to follow the orders, we're going to go against ICE, you know what? Who's going to be next on the list? The person who maybe didn't commit the heinous act. Maybe the innocent person who's not very innocent because they're still here illegally, they're going to get swept up. If those mayors, if those governors would have complied and worked with the federal agents, then I guarantee you, nonviolent offending immigrants are going to be on the very low bottom list tier. But whenever you have the state interfering with federal law, and saying, okay, you're not going to allow us to go to your prison. You're not going to let us go to your prisons. You're not going to let us go to your prison. Okay, fine. We'll go ahead. If we got a stereotype and go and just do checks and see if you're a U.S. citizen, hey, it happens.
So you're saying, okay, so you're just happy to acknowledge then that ICE are doing these stereotyping and such just because they believe.
Sure, there's pattern recognition. Sure. Yeah, there's pattern recognition. There's
racial profiling now.
There's profiling.
So that's God's will as well, right?
Absolutely. That's our federal government's strategy.
So racial profiling is God's will. So okay, I mean, I don't mean to go to home, right?
It's not God's will, but no, you're not. It's just you have.
No, but like you said yourself, your family are of like immigrant background, right? So do you not see them as
they are legal immigrants?
Yeah, but they're not just going after the supposed illegal immigrants. They're going after everyone. They're killing American citizens.
They're killing Americans. Dude, the number of ICE you can't even count them on two hands within this last year. You can't even count that. Yet there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are killed by violent, illegal aliens that shouldn't be in this country in the first place.
We've already gone over that, but that isn't
and that's sad that dying. You don't get it. And you know what? Your country is going to be ran over and taken over too if you don't wake up and understand it. I'll go ahead and just leave you with this for right now and just play this video. All right. So
I thought we were finishing in a second, actually. So
yeah, we are. We're going to wrap it up. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. I want to go out, get some exercise, and enjoy the sun. While it's still out there.
Early in the day, isn't it? Okay, well, to end then, because come us to a sort of concluding point.
Sure.
A big long talk about just this last little bit about the law and supposedly all the laws that these immigrants are breaking, yada yada. And God's given governments the divine power to establish laws and such. But Jesus, he broke the law. His followers broke the law.
Jesus was the law. Jesus was the law. Jesus is the law.
In the Roman Empire, Christianity was outlawed, right? It took Constantinople, I believe, first Christian emperor.
It wasn't outlawed. It was hunted down. It was causing problems for the Roman Empire. And Paul, one of the greatest apostles there is, who says that he's the least of the apostles because he was a persecutor of the Christian church, and God revealed himself to him. Paul was sent to be to commit genocide against these Christians because they were causing so much distress to the Roman Empire. And Paul ended up going to his death that he knew he was going to end up dying for the cause. And he realized the wrongs that he had done, and he realized that he was acting against God's nature, and God used him and made him one of the strongest disciples that ever lived. Second to Jesus, Paul is the most important apostle that there is.
Okay, regardless of that, do you think that the fact that, in fact, do you think it was justified for the Roman Empire to outlaw Christianity?
Excuse me? Say that one more time.
do you think it was justified for the Roman Empire to outlaw Christianity? Like, do you think it
Well,
was okay? Do you think it was good for Romans to persecute and hunt down Christians and such?
if Rome had the power and the authority and the of the
No, do
land at that
you think it
time,
was okay? Do you
do I
think it was
think?
okay?
I think it's a product. It's a product of the time.
But do you think it's okay?
I would say probably not. No.
Probably. Come on, you know the answer is no. You know the answer is no. So can you see, therefore, that clearly some laws are not good, and therefore, even in the imaginary scenario where there are immigrants who may have entered the US via less than legal manners, which I will stress is not the
They came
extent of
here
what I'm
illegally.
going
They came
after,
here illegally.
but does that really matter? And should it matter?
Yes, it does matter.
Why?
100%.
Why does it
Because
matter so much
you
to you?
are
Seriously.
because you are breaking the law. Just
Other than
like
why you break the law, why does it matter so much?
because if I enter your home, your domicile, it doesn't matter if I stay there. It doesn't matter if I am being
Jesus said,
kind.
you're meant to share your home, aren't you? You're meant to share your home as Christians. And it's not your home, it's the whole country.
If I break into your home, you have a right to your property. America has a right to protect its borders and protect its citizens. Every country has laws on the books. This is why you cannot travel to every country you feel like and just go and settle there. Okay, there are now laws that have been established that prevent that. And as a Christian, we are called to abide by the laws, whatever country we go. If I go to Russia, I'm not going to go and break the laws that Russia has. Just because I'm a Christian, I'm not going to let my Christian faith, override the laws of the law of the land in Russia. Now, if I don't like it there, I might get out of Russia, if I feel like it's being imposed. But as a Christian, whenever I'm traveling to another country, I'm following the laws that are in place because the laws are there for a reason, and we are told to obey those laws in different lands.
Well, clearly we're going to have to agree to disagree, but I think that if you dig deep down,
take the door off of your house. Take the door off of your house for an entire month.
Cold. Yeah, I get animals coming in and such.
Okay, well, get a space heater. Get a space heater or something. Take the door. Leave your door unlocked. Leave your door unlocked for a month.
An unlocked door can still blow open with a draft, as often.
Oh, you guys should really improve on your door technology because now most modern doors they have a self-locking system. So maybe you have to do some carpentry, work on your door and get an up to date door that can.
Well, Jesus was a carpenter, wasn't he?
So keep your door unlocked. Keep your door. Do it during the summertime.
I get what you're doing here. Obviously, you're leading me to
do that for a month. Do that for a month, and then come and talk to me serious about anything border related.
There's a difference between a house and a country. Crime is a social factor, but we're going round in circles now, and you want to enjoy the rest of your day and such.
Yeah,
so I will say thank you for having me on. It was clearly quite a long chat, 2.5 hours or so, or a bit less than that. But
that's good. I'm glad. Hey, you know what? You've been a lot more tolerable than some of these other people. I highly disagree with the majority, but hey, you know what? That's what this whole thing was about. Hey, can we disagree on things and still say that, hey, I see you as a human being created in the image of God. I don't hate you for what you think. I highly disagree with you, and but that is not for a reason for me to dislike or disdain or other you for any reason. I think what we did is this is what you call a healthy dialogue between people who have two different ideas and two separate ways of how things should be, and they have a dialogue. And this is why it's important to have discussions like this, because once we lose the capability to be able to discuss things like this, things tend to descend into chaos rather quickly. So let's be grateful that we live in countries, even though your country's kind of losing it, the right for freedom of speech, to have freedom of speech and be able to say what you want to say and not be endangered and that allow us to have an open dialogue. Amen.
Interesting words. Yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks for having me
There you
on, and all as well. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. You have a good one. And I will play this, and I'll just step away, but I will play it because I've already seen the video. You can watch it. You can take off. I'll just play it in the back. But yeah, we add it to the stage here.
Yeah,
It's
no, I will
getting
shoot
crazier
off.
out there.
Have a nice evening.
I know,
mate.
not
Take
like
care.
that.
See you in a bit.